Good morning, good morning, good morning, King Blacklight. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Good, Kim. How's it going? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. Happy 1-year anniversary, my king.
Thanks, man.
You are so welcome. I would usually wait a few minutes, but I don't want to waste any time. I want all 2 hours with you. I feel like last time we could have went longer, so we're just going to dive in if that's okay with you.
Sure, yeah.
Good morning. How's your week?
It's good. Yeah, I took today off. I've been burning the candle at both ends, so I've been
My
working
king,
a lot.
I've watched you burn it all year. I just scrolled your timeline a little bit, and I noticed you have taken maybe a week of what I would consider remarkable downtime for you in the past year that I've watched you creating. Is that true?
Yeah, a little
Amen.
bit.
Well, at least publicly, maybe not posting it all is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
So 1 year in, give it to me in one word. What's your one word for the year that you've experienced?
Overwhelming.
Overwhelming. Do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Sure, yeah. I mean, when I first started to learn this stuff, I was very hesitant just about AI in general. And yeah, it's just been an interesting year. When I first started, I got a lot of resistance, and I feel like I've been kind of fighting an uphill battle along the way, and just a lot of noise and new things coming out, and it's hard to stay ahead of the curve a little bit, but but it's been fun.
I'll tell you this, King. You've made it fun for a lot of people, and
Thanks.
So something I've noticed over the past 3 months with you, and I have so many things I want to talk to you about. I have a long list of notes, so we're going to jump around a little bit, but I think this kind of segues into something I've noticed that I think is worth presenting now, and it's what's really interesting to me about your work across socials is that often the first reaction I see from people that see your work is not the same reaction to most AI content that I see. And a lot of times it's in this vein, or it has this resonant energy that is, this is what AI content should be, or this is what these tools should be used for. And I find that very interesting that you found like this portal that's kind of backdooring the energy that you just spoke of, that you resistance, friction, noise, a battle, a lot of resistance. And you've kind of like entered this back door where people are like, wait a second, I like this and I don't have bad things to say about this. What, is something wrong with me? Did this person trick me into liking AI tools? Is that something you've went for, or is that just something you found?
I made it I think so. I started in April, and I did like 2 months of testing before I started the Blacklight brand, essentially. And what I saw in the beginning was a lot of copycat of what was trending on social media. So my exposure to AI video was not on X, it was on TikTok.
Sure.
And it was really big in like this dark fantasy. So there was a lot of people that were just chasing trends. And as I got into the AI space, I saw a lot of people just mirroring existing media. And I made it a point to myself that I was like, if you're going to do this, you can't just half-ass it. You have to really just commit to what you're to create something new. Because I mean, think about it. There's a lot of energy that's spent in AI. On AI, there's a lot of money that's been spent on AI, billions and billions of dollars, and people are out here just making copies of stuff. So it's not like I never treated AI like a glorified, replication machine. And I think the fear among a lot of anti-AI people is that it's going to replace jobs, it's going to replace people, it's going to replace the industry, and I just never saw that as the vein I wanted to go in. There's a lot of people that use it for ad work and creative work, and they are working in that vein, and that's just not what I wanted to do. I wanted to show people that this is like a new media and a new opportunity, and kind of just lean into that. create something new. And even the music,
Yeah.
when I first started, it was like 1 minute videos, just taking samples of popular songs and putting videos over them. And even that just felt contrived. I was like, well, I'll make my own music for my videos, and that'll be like, totally original and new and a new concept. And I just kind of ran with it.
Well, I think you've done a great job. Now that we've got a few people in the room here, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday to you. It is a glorious day to be talking to King Blacklight. I've been looking forward to this for 2 weeks. Blacklight, as you all know, most of you here in the space, good morning, everyone, is a very prolific creator. By night, he's a self-taught, internationally exhibited, and award-winning AI artist, making generative experiences. Most of you are probably familiar with his show that he is, his series he's working through, Route 47, that he is channeling into us. This man has to absolutely be tapped into some other dimension. There's no way that you just constantly are thinking up this stuff. He's got to have some vision through some portal that he is seeing into this world. And by day, this man is a nationally recognized marketing executive with over a decade experience and has multiple exits, 2 tech exits as an entrepreneur, working on his 3rd at the moment, and 2nd founder's exit. So he is very experienced. He knows what he's talking about in media, in marketing, in sales. I really valued the last time we spoke, Blacklight, and I think the community's got a lot of value out of the clips that we've posted, and you've really kind of guided a lot of the energy in the space. I feel like you're putting out so much work and you're very vocal, whether that vocalization is poking or positive, all over the place. And I really appreciate it. I think, you're one of the more authentic and I'll use your words. Sorry for the language, but fuck the man. That's your words, So that is who you are, and we really appreciate that. So excited to keep talking with you today. He has 9 videos on Rad. He's been creating for when was your actual anniversary? What was the day?
It was Monday.
Monday. So happy anniversary. He's a year in. He's amassed 100,000 followers across socials. He's had over 9 million views. He started the West Coast AI Labs with, let me make sure
I didn't actually.
They started, okay, Underworld and Null Hacks.
Underworld and Null Hacks.
Yes.
They're the OG West Coast AI Labs. I've always just loved their work. And in fact, when I was doing Whispers of the Dark, I was talking with Null. He had, at the time, jailbroke kind of 2 Claudes to kind of chat with each other. And I was like, hey, ask it about the Algorithm Corporation, the project I was working on in October. And he did, and it was really interesting, and I actually incorporated that in my video. A lot of the tech segments are actually from those conversations. And then we did a collaboration together in December. And then in January, they asked me to join them at West Coast AI Labs, and I happily agreed. And we've kind of been on a divide and conquer sort of mentality since then. We're all just kind of doing different things in different avenues, and just a really great sounding board for each other.
Yeah, you guys are crushing it, and the stuff you're putting out is amazing. I see West Coast AI Labs was recently at NFTLA.
They're down there this weekend.
Yeah, they're down there this weekend, and they're actually there today from 10 to 12 p.m. If you're in LA, I'll pin the post right now. So if anybody's interested and in the space, you can go and meet up with them. Sorry, got sidetracked thinking here. So what is that like when you join a collective? Are you guys, you said divide and conquer, so that's like, I guess it is a collective, but you're dividing and conquering, like you said. So are you guys working on pieces together? Are you trying to expand the brand? What's the goal for West Coast AI Labs?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely collaborate with each other on stuff. We use each other as sounding boards. We're working on different projects all the time. We're working on client work. There's some other stuff that they've been working on in the background that I'm not really at liberty to discuss, but just different projects. It doesn't always take all 3 of us to be on something, but we use each other as kind of resources. One of the things I've learned kind of this year is that, I came into this just being mostly neutral, and I've received everything from hate to praise and everywhere in between. And, it's really hard to find really some solid friends that you value their opinion and their expertise. And I've met a few friends like that this year. I see Dustin's here. He's one of them. Sherry, Dagmar, just a lot of really cool people in the space that have been just awesome to talk to and work with. And so it's just been good to have that sounding board. So yeah, a lot of different projects, and it's better to have, 3 different people with, a wider spread than just 1 or 2 people. So
I think right now it's almost, and I'm projecting here. I don't know. I'm not as in the space as you guys are, but it almost, from an outsider's perspective, looking at all the tools dropping, like it's a must almost that you have a group to be sharing these ideas with. Because how else are you going to try? It's nonstop new tools every single day. Like refresh the feed, new tool dropped. And so like, how do you keep up unless you have a group of people that you can really trust to be trying out different tools and then really value their input and feedback?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and a lot of the stuff,
Sorry.
we have different specialties too, and so I think that's what has been really unique, is that when I need help with something specific, I have 2 counterparts that I can go to and say, hey, you're better at this than I am. How would you approach this? And how do you deal with this? So it's been really a fun experience.
Was that by design or happenstance?
Happenstance.
Awesome. Very cool. So you went viral on TikTok pretty heavily. I actually watched it. I saw it happening before you even talked about it. So Rads, we've really increased our presence on TikTok. Anybody's not aware of our feelings on it. We feel like TikTok is the place to be right now. Overall of social media. We think it's the app,
I would
the
agree.
place to be, especially if you're in AI. And I saw it happening. I saw your views start to ramp up. I saw a couple videos from 2 days earlier were going hard, and you were posting, and you were in this flow of I could see it coming. You probably were seeing it coming, and then boom, a huge explosion. Tell us about that. What was that experience like? Were you doing anything different? Did they just catch and go? Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, it was really just a catch and go. I mean, I've been running with different styles and I've been mainly cataloging stuff for myself for the past year, and testing new things, trying new things. And then something just kind of clicked. I hit kind of a wall, and I was like, I need to try something different. And it's funny, I actually asked the West Coast AI Lab guys, I'm like, I need to do something that's going to just that I can pour more energy into, that it can just build on itself. And Hacks was like, Gorbos, do another Gorbos video, because it came from that collaboration we did in December. And I was like, I had a model made for that and everything. So I was like, I'll come back to that and expand kind of the lore there. And then it just started to take off. And I knew it was changing when people started saying my show is on. And so when total strangers start taking claim to something, it's not yours anymore. And now I'm just kind of along for the ride. Even today, I woke up this morning and I've been trying a different style the past couple days, doing first person view, and in the comments people are getting mad, I want Sad Steve. And so the content now is really almost up to what people want to see, and just kind of giving them what they want, which is freeing and trapping at the same time. It's freeing because I don't have to really think about where the next idea is going to come from, because they just kind of feed into the story now. It's trapping because people want to see something specific. So the cryptid dating game is probably one of the most popular videos that I have right now, and it's probably the hardest to make and the most time consuming to make. And people want to see it every day. I'm like, I don't have 6 to 8 hours every day to do something. Every once in a while, I just maybe a 4-hour project, and I don't need a whole full-time job after the fact.
Amazing. So what was the sentiment like there? Largely, I'll tell you from our perspective, what we saw was pretty much, I said at one word, it was overwhelming, you said, for the year, but I feel overwhelmingly positive on TikTok. Is that what your experience has been there as well?
Yeah. I would say 90% positive.
Amen. Let's go. So, I think last we spoke I don't know, what, 8 months ago now, October something, maybe November, 6 months ago. You were spending quite a bit of time, like you just mentioned, how many hours a day at night? Were you 4 hours, 5 hours? I
Yeah.
would love to know from the time you started to now, how has that window of time closed to
It
change
hasn't.
to it hasn't?
No,
Oh,
no,
wow.
it's just changed the type of work.
Okay. Was that
And
because you're working in this segment? You're producing as much as you can. Has the amount of work you're producing increased, or is the work
oh yeah,
hard? Okay, yeah, keep going.
yeah. So like when I first started, it would take me like 8 hours to do a 1 minute video, and now I'm consistently doing like 4, 5, 6, 10 minute videos in that same time frame. So it's weird. Like if you everything I know over the past 10 years of social media marketing, I hated. And I do this for a living, right? So I know that there's clicks and there's, all the things that you need to focus on for engagement. And I didn't want to ever follow the algorithms. I just wanted to make stuff. And by all, I don't know how it happened, but little things, right? Like, so an aspect ratio, 16:9 versus 9:16, which is
Yep,
landscape versus
yep.
portrait. Traditionally 16:9 doesn't work on social media. I broke that. Longer posts, usually the way that TikTok's algorithm specifically works is it's based on engagement, and which is percentage watched, new watchers, things like that. People are watching the entire video. My repeat watch percentage is like 17%,
Awesome.
which is insane.
Insane.
Like
Yeah, really high. Yeah.
yeah. So
Especially not for like something that's 5 seconds. Yeah.
on TikTok,
Yeah.
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 And people ask, like, make sure it's on YouTube. I want to show my friends. I want to watch it on TV. And it's funny, as I've been doing this, I used to be very caught up in the idea of like everything has to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be perfect. If the green screen flickers in a spot, nobody's going to remember that. If the video's not perfectly, aligned, nobody's going to mention that. Like, it's these little things that I used to get hung up on that nobody cares. They just care about the stories and being entertained.
So in that 1 year period, you're trying all these tools. If you have to answer as soon as I finish the question, what tool did you use the most that past year?
Um, Kriya.
Awesome. That's a great. I love the answers that incorporate multiple tools because that seems like the easiest way to
Mm-hmm.
like answer. Say more with less. So, was there any tool that really surprised you? That specific tool. So, like not an interface. Any tool throughout the year that really stood out to you as like a clear winner of the year, or it maybe a handful of tools as these were the things that won in the Blacklight AI Tool Awards that you're handing out? Any 2 or 3 trophies?
I think it's really hard to pick one because, as time goes on, there's these leapfrog moments, right? Where a lot of these companies kind of catch up to one thing, and then there's a leapfrog. So, Runway's going through that right now with Gen 4. There's some amazing outputs that are coming from that. Luma's got some really great stuff. The keyframing stuff that I've been doing recently has all been in Luma. Kling just updated their whole UI and their experience. And then there's a lot of like offshoots that have done a lot of stuff. So there's not really one tool. I really bounce between like 6 to 8 different tools or companies in any given project. Hedra has been a longtime supporter of mine. I love everything that they're doing. Looking forward to seeing what they're building as they expand out more of like their world model kind of ideas. And that's really kind of where I'm trying to get to. I've always said I'm trying to do generative experiences. So to me, it's more than just music videos and films. I want to move into augmented reality and world building and things like that. So that's the stuff that really excites me.
Awesome. Over the past year, you've used a lot of these tools. You've been in creator partnership programs where the credits have been provided to you. You've paid for them as a professional. We even discussed, and I'd love to talk more about the decision to treat what could have been a hobby as a business because it fit your world and your life. We'll get to that in a minute. I have that in my notes. But I would love to know if you noticed any significant changes in the cost of a tool or maybe total tooling in the space over the year. And I'll preface that with even just this week, Dreamina rolled out their new lip sync. If you used it on Monday, it was 150 to 175 credits for a 10-second video. If you use it today, the same exact thing, it's 32 credits. And that's them figuring it out, them figuring out their user base, how big a package they can buy from whatever product they're wrapping. Have you noticed that? The prices have come down for you, and is it significantly more cost effective for you to produce the same work as opposed to a year ago?
So a year, I mean, if I were to look at I just did my taxes. So my AI expenses for last year were over $10,000. And that's with creative partnerships. And that's for the year. So it's not cheap. I feel like it was more expensive. And obviously, as time goes on, these tools and their products will become cheaper as competition intensifies. I said early, I think it was like in December, that I think this is the year that we'll start to see some consolidation. We're sitting here midway through April, haven't seen it yet, but there comes a point in a market where there can only be so many players in a space before you run out of money. So I fully expect there to be acquisitions and partnership as the tools go on. And I even talked to someone at Kling last night, and they're aware of the conversations people are having about pricing on their new products as well. So I think it's an interesting time because you need to have a market to be able to figure out your costs per acquisition and your costs for maintenance and everything. And without having those products being used, it's hard to gauge what that exactly is going to be. It may be to the detriment of the people that are using it because they have to pay more on Monday than they did on Friday, for example. But that's just kind of par for the course whenever any new product comes out.
Yeah, we started to look at what it would be for RAD to roll out generative tools, and we started to think and have conversations about is everybody going to have these tools on their platform? And it kind of looks like it's just going to be baseline. Everybody's going to have AI built in, so it's not it's table stakes. It's that you have whatever people are doing on your platform have AI to help them and speed it up if possible. So we've noticed what we consider to be an absolute bloodbath in the market right now for VC capital and attention on the timeline for your new tool rollout. And I would love for you to maybe share your perspective on, you're just mentioning there's going to be roll-ups, there's going to be acquisitions. Do you think it's going to be a company like Google? Is it OpenAI that just raised $40 billion when entire companies that we all own products like Sony is worth $50 billion? And OpenAI just raised $40 billion cash? Like, that is insanity. Are we entering the era where they have to start buying these tools? And I would also ask you, maybe you have some insight as to where is the real differentiation happening with these tools? And do we know that yet? Because something that was really interesting is when the camera movements came out, all of a sudden everybody had camera movements. So it's not like there was this one advance. It's one tool advanced and all these wrappers update what they were doing in a different way. How do you roll up when everybody's just wrapping the same tools differently? Is it Anthropic that's the winner here? And I know I've asked 5 questions, so I'm kind of just laying the ground for you to speak on it because I feel like it's kind of a complex space, like just even getting the lay of the land, and maybe you have a better insight there. Like you said, you just talked to somebody from Kling. That's pretty high up.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends, right? I feel like I've only been in this for a year, so I can't really speak to before. I was in the space and there was a lot of stuff that's done both on the development side and the creative side pre-2024. But I feel like I've been keeping my eye more on the open source space. I think there was maybe a misstep in that community where they may not have realized the potential that they had to monetize their own creations and developments. And then people came in and did exactly that. And, some people got upset about it, but really, we all live in this system where we have to make money to survive and to pay our bills. So if you're not going to monetize it, somebody else will. In that vein, I also don't give too much stock into proprietary tools anymore, because if it's not available to the public, it's not a true, public offering, then it doesn't really matter in my world. If I'm not going to be using it, then there's no point in me focusing my energy there. So I look to who's giving me ease of use, who's giving me, the value for my product. There's clear differences, right, in some of these programs. Runway, for example, their creative partners essentially have unlimited use of their tools. Other partners like Kling and Minimax has been great about this too, unlimited use to their creative partners. Luma and Kling have gone the other way with kind of a credit system and re-upping, and they do seem to refill those as needed, and they do value the feedback loop, but it feels like a more transactional relationship than a mutually beneficial relationship. And so I think as creatives grow, like if I'm going to be getting onto a project and there are certain tools I want to use, this is the opportunity for them to get out of the bubble. Because at this point, like if I were to go to a conference, I'm not going to sit and listen to someone talk about AI. I spent a year teaching myself about it. So there's nothing anyone's going to tell me that is going to be earth-shattering new news that I haven't already learned. And so to me, now is the point to like break out of that bubble and kind of push away from the shore of my colleagues and push towards breaking into the general zeitgeist. What are other people thinking about AI? How do we get more people into this space? And I always have these art parties on Sunday, and I hate the idea of like this group of people getting together and it's just like a circle jerk about how great everybody is. But I want to know how regular people think about it. How do we get, the average person to enjoy AI media? That's where the value is, not how many creative partners are using the tools or which creative partner is ranked best and winning these awards. Because at the end of the day, that's just your peers. And if you're just exciting your peers, that's great, but you're not doing anything to move the needle. The real change comes from mass adoption and getting more people comfortable with the media that they see that comes from these tools. And so to me, as much as I value my friendships and the colleagues that I've met this past year, the relationships I've met outside of this bubble have a little bit more weight to me because it gives me a truer north, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. And so, you see people like Heather Cooper that are working on projects that are integrating AI into the production, and it's on Amazon. Do you feel like that is reaching regular people? Do we need to be more vocal about those types of productions being mainstream and that being AI? Like, should we be louder about those things to make people outside of our space more aware that these tools are creating the shows they're watching now or helping
Yeah,
them?
absolutely. I think that a little peek behind the curtain isn't a bad thing. I'm not going to give everybody my secret sauce on how I make everything, but there's been many times over the past year where I've created openly and I've shared my screen and shown people my process. And I want more people to see that it's not just, type in a prompt and press go. And there's a lot of tools and places that are going into this like one prompt video creation. That's great if you want to just a bunch of generic, videos. But if you want to create something truly unique, it's not going to come from a single prompt. It's going to come from time and effort, and that shows to people. And a lot of the comments that I get about it, my work, is that people will say, "I can see how much time you put into this," and that is. That means something, because it's not something that I'm just like, come in and write a prompt and then post the video that comes out from the output.
Right.
There's a place for that, but that's just not what I'm doing.
So how are you feeling about the cost of these tools and the success rate of the generations a year in? Are you feeling like that has improved? Has it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What
Yeah. I still
percentage
think
would you give me a
experiences.
year beginning to now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big difference. I mean, we went from moving pictures to I'm making like immersive walkthroughs now, which is totally different
Sure,
than
sure.
what we've seen previously. And that technology is just getting better. Robert Scoble talks about the holodeck all the time, and I feel like we are rapidly approaching that space. And Tim Cook has recently been said that he wants to beat Meta to the augmented reality space. I mean, there is so much opportunity in those technologies for creatives like us that it's just not a competition. This weird kind of, I blame kind of some of the space a little bit for it too, because there's all these competitions and art competitions and
Yep.
win this creative partnership,
Yeah.
win that, but art is not competitive. Like creativity is not naturally competitive. I don't see my colleagues as my competition. I see them as my friends, and I think that mentality kind of gets lost sometimes when we're in this like constant cycle of like competitions and who won this and who won that and trophies
It seems like a lot of grifting and people
it's
trying
just
to
a lot of boasting.
yeah,
And it's just
it's people trying
I'm
to
just
take
not
energy
one.
away from the creators for something else is how we view it. And we threw like, should Rad TV have? Everybody has an awards. There's all these festivals
Yeah.
popping it up, and it's like, should Rad TV do one of those? And we're like, nah, we're just going to do a creator of the day and highlight them because we believe that if we start handing out awards, it actually causes infighting, whether you see it or not. People are having private conversations of, well, I submitted and I didn't get accepted, but this person did. And it definitely causes issues amongst the community, and we care more about the community than we do extracting. For like there's nothing to it. You can't be a part of a community if it doesn't exist. So it's like fostering that should be the focus. And I think what's really powerful right now is that these communities are being kind of led by VC credits. These communities are finding each other. These creators are finding each other because they have endless credits to spend. What happens when the credits dry up?
And they're starting to. And I think that's the reality. And that's why I think it's even more important right now to like get out of the bubble. Afrofuchsia is a friend of mine. She's overseas and, she makes incredible work. And same thing. She was a big advocate of like getting out of the space where you're in, where people are right now and go to new uncharted territory. TikTok for me, I posted there for like 8 months. It took me 6-7 months just to get 1,000 followers there. And I had maybe 200 300 views every day, and I just posted there as part of my process. And even a few weeks before I went viral, I was talking to a pastor, and he was like, he's like, I don't even pay attention there anymore. And I was like, I just post there because it's part of my routine, and if it ever pops, then it pops, but I'm just going to keep it part of my routine. And someone posted earlier, it's like, if you give up on your 999th try and the 1,000th try is the one that gets through, then you just stop short. And my biggest thing over the year has been to just kind of block out a lot of advice from people. I've done pretty well for myself in my life, and so I take advice from a grain of salt and kind of block out a lot of what I should do. People telling me I should do this or I should do that, and I've really just focused on me and my plan and put blinders on the rest.
That's incredible to hear. And I think you really have been doing that. And I think to be a creator in this space, and a lot of the creators that are here listening, all of you, have fought through a lot of noise and a lot of pushback and a lot of bullshit over the last year that is not deserved. 98% of it is not applied to any one of you that I've witnessed. And it seems like the sentiment that you had the first time we spoke, Blacklight, you said, I'm not responsible for the training that these companies are doing. I'm showing up and using a tool. And if somebody hands me a pair of scissors and somebody else says those are illegal scissors, then I'm paraphrasing what you said, of course, that like, it's not my fault. Like that somebody had illegal scissors and I found out later that they were illegal. I trusted the company. How do you feel about that copyright landscape a year in? And where do you think we're headed with IP and copyrights based on even the last month?
I love that you ask these trap questions, Cam.
Yes, I do. I write them. I think of them and write them down ahead of time so that it's not in the moment. I look forward to talking to you, my king. Thank you for being here.
I hate talking about this, but we can chat about it. The copyright stuff, the United States is the one that's really big on it. I It just goes back to, again, what we're doing, right? Like, I'm trying to create something new. And so I don't really think about copyright too much because I'm not trying to copy anything. I'm trying to make new stuff. And I feel that that's really the best way to go. Do I think copyright in general needs to be redone as a concept and re-looked at in the United States? Yeah, 100%. Look at what's happening right now with the luxury goods market and the Chinese manufacturers all over TikTok because of the tariffs.
It's hilarious. Honestly, it's
You know what I
crazy
mean?
and funny. It's weird.
It is hilarious. And like, just book directly through us. You're just being scammed.
Yeah, it's like they're literally walking around. If you guys haven't seen these, they're like, it's like a person that works for a walking around at like a convention, and they just show you the company. Like, yeah, just contact this company for all Hermes leather. Here you go. This is where Louis Vuitton gets their zippers, and they're super cheap. And like, they're just walking around like destroying businesses, and it's comical, but it's also like a sign of the times. It's like a race to the bottom.
Yeah, it is a race to the bottom, and I just don't want to participate in that. It's just not what I'm trying to do personally. And for me, it's just about staying true to myself and my vision and focus on that. I mean, I'm working on a project right now that's a large collaborative project. This Alice in Wonderland. That Neem
Yes,
Perez.
please tell us more about that. We'd love to hear about the AI Wonderland film on X.
Yeah.
I'll pin them to the top of the chat right now. Please tell us any more about that you can.
Yeah, I know Neem and Tony and Sway and those guys have been on before. They did the T2 remake. So it's some of the same people, some new people, but it's a huge collaboration. Everyone has kind of different scenes that they're working on. And yeah, still in development. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think you should be. And the Cameo Gen tech that they're rolling out is really cool. So you're one of the 25 artists on there. Do you guys can you share anything of like, do you have a date in mind for when this might be released or maybe even a month or anything like that yet?
I am not sure, and I don't know what I'm at liberty to
I was gonna preface it with don't share anything and get you in trouble. Remember, we're live here.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I know we have worked on treatments and we've got our scenes, so it's in process right now.
Let's go. So, Hollywood is seemingly on fire. I don't know what else. I don't know how else to put it. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, but Warner Brothers is going to go out of business if Superman doesn't do well. Technicolor out of business. Another huge. I forget what's the other one. There's another big company that just shut down half. They had two huge offices in LA. They shut down half of it and moved north. State of Hollywood, in your opinion, with these tools coming out, and I don't just mean generative tools. I mean AI tools in general. I'm sure you're seeing editing tools that are helping you edit, whether that be sound, video, whatever. Where do you think Hollywood is in right now, and where are they headed? Is it over, and we're just watching the end?
That's a good question. I think Hollywood is behind the ball. I think they had an opportunity to hop in early. The writer strikes definitely put a huge, mark on generative AI and brought it to the forefront in a negative light at a time that it needed the opposite. And I blame, some of the companies for not being more forthright and outspoken about the technology, Sam Altman included. Nobody wants to hear that there's a black mystery box that's potentially going to take your job. And there was never really a strong counter to why that's not the case. But at the same time, Hollywood also has gotten bloated and unimaginative. Think of the past, 5 years. How many remakes have we seen? How many second, third, fourth versions of movies have we seen? There's just not new ideas coming out of Hollywood. And part of it is because of the budgets, right? But Hollywood budgets exploded. And you can't take a risk when you have someone you're paying $97 million to. So they kind of back themselves into a corner there. There are people that are in the space that have been there for 20, 30 years. They don't deserve to lose their livelihoods because, an executive doesn't want to take a risk. And I see those people moving into the space, and there's incredibly talented um, people that have been in Hollywood that are now using Gen tools, and I think it's great. But I think the Hollywood that we all know is probably moving by the wayside as more generative tools come out. And also just look at the way that we as consumers consume media
That's my
now.
next question. Yep. I was going to say, keep going.
Yeah, it's just I look at the landscape of, I want my material to get in front of my audience. My audience does not necessarily, like, I'm making stuff that's going to be maybe like on Adult Swim, right? And so that's a late night crowd. There's a lot of stoners, probably people that are at a party or something. It's geared towards a specific audience. Those people aren't going to go to the movie theater and watch a 3-hour movie. Even now, like, I went to the movies with my girlfriend a few months ago, and when we were there, I had a hard time just staying awake. Like, a lot of the stories are predictable. We'll be watching TV and I'll be like, oh, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then it happens. So it just gets stale after a while. And I think the exciting part of the space that we're in is there's all these new people that have these cool stories that they now have the abilities to tell with a very low barrier to entry.
Amen. I'll tell you, the last thing that really shocked me TV wise was White Lotus, and it was not the type of shock that I was anticipating.
I was disappointed by it, actually.
Looking for.
Yeah.
I was not.
And it's something so stupid, right? So the guy who did the music for that, he came out right before the finale and said, actually, the song that everybody loves was in it. And it was supposed to expand as the season went on. So you had that, the noise that everyone loves. And Mike Wolf cut it. And that's like a perfect example of, like, I think a really good metaphor for how Hollywood acts is like, just give people what they want. Like, give people what they want and they will come back and be entertained. And that's kind of the lesson that I've taken is, as much as I want to try new stuff, the people that enjoy my media and are now, like, supporting me personally, like, will buy my merch and, hit me up in my messages and send me Discord stuff, or my Patreon supporters or anything. Like, these are people that want something specific. And if I just give them that, they're happy. And so why would I not do that? It just seems like, regardless of what I want to do creatively, if I've struck a nerve and has resonated with people and they want something specific, just give them it.
So I don't want to be controversial, but I'm definitely going to be the devil's advocate here. Isn't that like what Hollywood is doing? And that's like, no. So Hollywood is not giving you nonstop Avengers because it works?
Who wants nonstop Avengers?
They're making money on all of them. They're not losing money on Avengers. They're making money on every Avengers. They're losing money on Superman, Snow White, a bunch of other remakes. But the ones that are hitting, they hit hard. The margins are small, but they keep going because it's like, we're just going to give the people exactly what they want. We're not going to try anything new.
But they're not, though. That's the point that I'm trying to make. And so let's use the two examples you gave, right? Mm-hmm, so I worked at Disney in college doing characters. Look at the Snow White outfit that they used in the movie versus even just one of the street performers. It looks like shit. Like, they almost debase their audience by making it cheap. Look at Superman, for example. Henry Cavill was loved as Superman. WB didn't want to bring him back.
Right. Yeah.
So they're not giving people what they want. They're being cheap and they're, cutting corners. And then what happens is you just get this lackluster, people are like, why should I care about this? So people get emotionally invested into characters. And if they see Henry Cavill as Superman, or they see Sean Connery as 007, then, do it.
So where do we draw the line then between giving people exactly what they want from a studio and then that same studio being challenged
taking a risk
to take
and trying something new?
Yeah.
There's definitely a fine line there. I don't think that, for both to be true, that one has to be negated. I think you can do both, give people what they want and an IP that they like, and also try something new. If you can't do both at the same time, then, allocate as needed, go back and forth. But that's been my experience.
So, You are definitely seeing this, being a marketing professional, the rise of, and I say rise of, trust me, everyone, I know what I'm saying. I'm not that clueless. The rise of short form content. And I say that in the new form of short form content where it's like series based and it's starting to really get some serious traction. And do you see that portrait mode, short form, whether portrait or landscape, doesn't really matter. But do you see that gaining more traction in the States like it is elsewhere?
Maybe. I think it's different right now. The United States, we're in a mode where we're looking for escapism in our media. And I think that's kind of the point of media in general, is to provide momentary, escape and relief from your day-to-day life. So I can't really speak to outside the U.S. market, but at least here, I've seen that too. I think that people love lore. People love to have something that they can build on and that they can look forward to. And I think that's why those models are succeeding right now, because it gives people an opportunity to latch on to something new. And if it's something new that they like, it feels like a more personal connection. Like I was mentioning earlier, when people say, "Oh, my show is on," referring to one of my videos, I don't own that anymore. They have that ownership feeling of the characters and the stories, and that's what brings them back. So it's less really about me and it's more about the characters that I'm creating.
Sure.
So like now I can't just like kill off a character because it's got a huge fan base behind it.
Well, even if, yeah, don't kill him off, just write him into a new segment of the reality. And I think
Exactly.
that's where you're thinking. And this is where my head's been for a long time, is Ready Player One. The first time I read Ready Player One and they were traveling to different planets and doing different things, I was like, "Oh, that's the that's my dream of the metaverse." And that's always been my mindset: as there's no competition here. There's enough for everybody.
Right.
Like if it's all playgrounds, to just make a fun playground, and eventually some people are going to show up and play. And that feels like where we're headed. I love the idea of not killing off a character. That feels incredibly powerful. Like maybe they last, the author's life, and then characters start to die near the end of that where they can't continue. But it's almost even, the IP could go forever. And how many times have we killed off a character and then there's a different storyline where they don't die off or whatever? And I feel like we're headed towards that world of choose your own reality, and something we're seeing at RAD that's really interesting. There's this phrase, and I'm sure you've heard it, Blacklight, as a professional in the space, just-in-time content. And it's the step beyond on-demand, for those of you unfamiliar with the terminology or the lexicon in the media space. But it's a step beyond on-demand, where it's on-demand specifically for you, created as you want to watch it. So it's, maybe it's your favorite podcast, but it's in a universe that is more appealing to you, and you'll easier to consume for you. So the example I throw out is your favorite podcast host as your favorite cartoon character talking or whatever it is, and it's in that world to where you're watching a piece of content that only you dreamt up. We feel that that's kind of where content creation and content consumption are headed, is a lot of people are making content that maybe just they want to see come to life. And they're not really even thinking about the broader scope of marketability. And we've been talking about the value that adds, because they're not approaching it from a space of monetary gain. They're really just creating like pure soul. I want to see this thing exist, and I have to will it into existence, as opposed to this is a product. Are you feeling like we're going to get a lot more of that, or we see less of that as these tools stop giving out free credits?
I think there's both. I think there's a desire to just be entertained, and then there's a desire to be interactive and customized. I think we've seen the harm that can be caused when people exist in their own kind of bubbles and echo chambers. So I think there's a place for both. I see there's a lot of people now, at least from what I have read from comments and stuff, that people are like, I watch this when I'm eating dinner, or when I'm having my lunch break, or something like that. It's media consumption in like short bursts. instead of like sitting down and spending an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours binge watching something. There's a place for all of those types of media. So I don't really see one taking over more than the other. We probably will. I think when the technology advances and we get to like augmented reality and virtual reality and custom worlds, you'll have people that want to create that stuff, but there's also people that just want to have an experience that was built for them. And as someone who's like, doing these first person view videos, like every little thing has to be created. So it's not just the visual, but like how you move in the space. What does it sound like in the space? What are the dialogue options? All of that has to be
Very interesting.
curated and
Yeah.
created
Mapped. Yep. Yeah,
yeah,
sure. Awesome.
and so there's just, unless the technological complexity comes down, you will always have resistance of the do it yourself because a lot of people don't want to spend the time to create that. It's really easy for me a year back, a year in, and point to all of my content and say, look at the world that I built. But that was like thousands of hours of like creating every individual piece, every scene, every song, every animation, every edit. That takes time. And if I were to do the math on it, I mean, that's easily thousands of hours over the past year that I've spent on AI video creation.
That's okay. This is the perfect segment to get into the next piece of this that I'm sure so many people here are interested in hearing. Again, everyone, welcome. We have King Blacklight AI joining us today on this lovely Friday afternoon. I hope you all are healthy and enjoying your day. King Blacklight's been in the space for a full year. We are celebrating his 1 year anniversary today. At the top of the space, you can find 3 posts. One is to a project he's working on currently, AI Wonderland Film, which is headed up by Nem Perez. Am I saying, is it Nem or is it Neem?
I say Neem. I think it's Neem.
Okay.
I could be wrong, though.
All right. Nem and Sway, they did the T2 project. We also have West Coast AI Labs, who Blacklight is the newest member. Noel Haxon Underworld founded that, and he joined in January. They will be in LA at NFT LA today from 10 to 12 p.m. Pacific time. The post is pinned up at the top. And then the first post is, of course, Blacklight on Rad TV. You can find Blacklight everywhere. He's on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, X. An incredible creator. And we're getting ready to get in right now to me asking him about his process and how it's changed over the last year. You're talking about how much time you spent creating this world. And I would love to know if your process has changed, if you've defined it more. When we first spoke, you talked about recipes, and I love the analogy. And you talked about how if you need to create something, you got this go-to recipe, and you can whip it up. You know exactly, bang, 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 bang. I know exactly what I'm doing. I can have a piece in this amount of time if I follow the recipe. And then other times, you're playing with the recipe. You're trying to make cupcakes instead of a cake. You're trying, and these are your words. I know I'm paraphrasing them a little bit, but but you definitely used them. So has that changed for you? Have you changed your recipe? Have the ingredients changed? And would love to know, when you're setting out, are you starting with a visual in your head? Are you starting with a storyboard? I'm opening it up, King. I would love to hear how it's evolved over the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a cookbook now.
Hey, man, let's go. I love that. Awesome.
We're going to stay in the analogy. The recipes are still there. I'm just learning new ones. I think something interesting I've learned about my process is that I'll use the stuff I'm doing now as an example. Like I have the multi-dimensional stuff, and then each episode is a different TV show or TV channel. So the first time I do one of those, it's just like the concept. It's the pilot episode of it. Traditionally in Hollywood, the pilot is the shittiest episode. That is also true for me in this process when I try something new. So for example, Cryptid Dating Game. Cryptid Dating Game, I had just one character talking to the camera, static background. I noticed in those videos that the talking segments, while interesting, were also boring. And for social media and, dealing with an audience that is ever more ADHD and ADD, you need to keep people engaged both in the story and visually. So I was like, well, what if I were to change this background and make it move? Because having a talking character and a moving background has been a limitation in AI for a while. So I started masking and green screening to create a moving background. Then I was like, okay, what if I start to look at this instead of me looking at a TV screen like a diorama? And I'm sure everyone made dioramas when they're in school, the little school, shoebox, and you put all the characters in there and you move things around. And a lot of times when I'm trying something new, I'm in that diorama space where I feel like I'm playing with digital dolls and I'm putting things in certain places and then taking screenshots and then running those screenshots into animations and then editing things out and moving them around. So there's a lot of like trial and error still on the front end, but the process is the same. Tried and true recipes I can always go back to when I need them. Anything that's new that's coming out, I'm always kind of just testing it and seeing what I can do with it, what I can get away with. I think I'm known for like getting weird characters to lip sync. And that was just practice, trial and error. And then once you figure out how it works, then you can go back to it, and practice makes perfect. The more times you do something, the easier it gets, and that's what I've learned.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So what is your go-to image generator at the moment? And when you're thinking up these worlds, do you have a story in mind? Or so I have a story and I'm going to start with these images, and it feels to me like you kind of just explained that you're kind of spitballing, throwing some things at the wall to like fill in some of the holes of the storyboard, and then you kind of like start to piece together that pilot or that episode. Is that a correct?
Yeah, there were like when I first started doing these new videos, I woke up one morning and I don't know why, just out of nowhere, I was like, meet friends. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if you had like this like 80s theme song of meet friends? And it's this guy who makes little friends out of meat and they don't die. So stupid, right? Just like a dumb thought, just a stupid thought. And I was like, I can make that. And so I was like, let me just make it and see what it would look like. And then you just expand on it. And then it resonates with people and it kind of snowballs. Same with like the night signal. I always think of like Art Bell and Coast to Coast AM, I think was the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, you nailed it. Yes.
Yeah. And so I wanted to do like a mix of like Art Bell and Delilah.
Amazing. I love that I even get these references. It's incredible to me. I love that I get these jokes.
And so I was like, what if I combined Art Bell and Delilah? And it was just like the night signal. And it'd kind of be like the anchor point for all of these other shows and build kind of this meta narrative. And A's Alter gave me really great advice probably 6 or 7 months ago. He's like, you do a lot of really amazing stuff, but it's all over the place. He's like, make one thing, like a bucket, and make all of your content fit in that bucket. And that's your IP. And build your IP thinking about that you're just filling this bucket with different ideas, different characters. They could be totally different and the stories can be totally different, but how do they fit in the same bucket? And in that vein, I was able to then just kind of branch off and say, okay, this character is here and they do this, and this character's here. And then what is the overarching thing? And I kind of built the overarching thing as like multi-dimensional kind of reality. And then I wanted to create kind of a meta narrative. So each episode could be watched as a standalone, but then you could see that there's pieces in each of them where they're interconnected. And the more that you do that, the deeper the lore becomes over time, just naturally, right? And so these characters then become less 2D and more, 3D and living characters because you're expanding on their stories. When you make a music video, it's a one-off. When you make a series, you're investing in these characters. And a perfect example is like I had Philly and Amplitude Spleen on the Night Signal. I didn't like Amplitude Spleen. I didn't like making him. I didn't like how he looked. I didn't like the vibe that he had. So I was like, I need to write him out of this, and I need a better counterbalance to Philly. So it just became part of the story, and it gave me an opportunity to just move that character away, maybe somewhere else, and I can come back to that later on and try something new with this character and have a a better back and forth with like an opposite. So it's been interesting. I try to expand on new stuff, and as I've gained kind of a following, it's been easier because now people request things, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's a great idea." Someone's like, "Do international or interdimensional house hunters." I was like, "Perfect,
That's
I'll do
really
it."
good. That's a great
Someone's like,
idea.
"Do a cooking show." I'm like, "Done." So
That's
now
really
I feel
good.
like making requests of shows, I don't even have to come up with the ideas anymore. People are like, "Can you do this?" And I'm like, "I'll try." Someone asked me to do they wanted like a Dr. Phil type of spin-off show. And they're like, "But make him a shapeshifter." And I'm like, "I don't know if I could do that." I was like, "Okay, I'm going to try this." And then I did it. And it's like, I forget what I called it. I think dual something or duality something. But the character is a male and a female. So it's like a Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing. So the male therapist gives just absolutely awful, shitty advice. And the female version gives like amazing, perfect advice. But the problem is when you go see this therapist, they're constantly shifting between the two personalities. So I was able to accomplish it, and people resonated with it. So it was kind of cool.
Very cool. You're kind of making a diorama. It's not a shoebox. It's just like a world. And
Yeah.
it's just, and you're placing people like, oh, we'll just move this one further away from the main story at the moment. I love it.
Yeah.
So, what are you mid-journeying? What's your go-to image generator right now? That if you had to pull something up right now, where are you going right away to start?
If it's something brand new, I'm going to go to Comfy.
Wow, wow, okay. Is that something that you set up, a comfy flow that you set up, or are you using something that was already set up?
No, I set it up with the help of the West Coast AI Labs guys. Those guys
Yep.
are Comfy experts. It was something that I wanted to get into. I always found I liked Midjourney's ease of use. I have a problem with the sourcing of it. I mean, they're in a lawsuit right now, and as I started to seriously consider like marketing my work and selling stuff, I can't use a tool in good faith that I don't believe is ethical. And so like I can only like you can say whatever you want, but your actions really show like what your beliefs are. And so what I do now is I will create all new images in Comfy, and then I will make models based off of those images in either Korea or somewhere else where I can just make a model that I can use, or a LoRa set, because most of my images now are multi LoRa creations with different style weights. And what that means is like, this style is maybe super bright and colorful. It's weighted at like 90%. Then this style is like 80s retro, that's weighted at 60%. And I'll use like 4 or 5 different LoRa's to create my images. And then from that, I will then make a model from the images from that collection. So it's a pretty extensive process, but I feel like it keeps me as true to myself as I can. And it gives me a level of customization that is not easily replicatable.
That's what my next question was going to be. Does that allow you customization that is not other people can't access? And that feels like what everybody on this chat would be interested in having. And the Comfy is what allows that for you and the West Coast AI.
Yeah, that, and then when I make my models now, it's the same thing. It's just I have probably I can tell you, I think I have like 13 different models that I've built, and so it's really just a mix and match of all the things that I've created over the past year. And so you could replicate it. I mean, you could probably just take screenshots and make a model of yourself of it, but you're not going to have the same sort of, I don't know.
Well, we'd have to have access to your flow and what you have
Right.
in there and the logic that you have and whatever prompting you have built in along the way, right?
Yeah. I have 20. I'm looking at it right now. I have 20 different models that I've built this
Amazing.
past year.
Incredible.
So Are
you sharing any of those? Are you
Nope.
making it? Oh, all right.
I think I shared one model with Pastor and Sherry. I made one custom because they wanted a specific look. or a pastor did, and we did a collaboration together. So I made it and I gave him the reference. I think I gave Sherry the reference too. But other than that, no. And even more recently, I've had people ask me how I'm making stuff. And, if you were to ask me 6 months ago, I would tell you everything. I am probably not as open as I was
bet.
6 months ago.
Yeah, I think everybody's closing up a little bit. I think all the companies are closing up. It's the look behind the curtain is limited right now, and especially if you're somebody that's really doing it at a high level, because I'd say everybody on this space is probably in, and I'm just guessing and just talking out my ass. I don't really have a number here, but I would say everybody on this space listening to this and involved in this community has got to be in the top 5, maybe 10% of AI thinkers in the world. Like, you're paying attention to this stuff every day. You know what's going on. Not many people do. And then if you're really pumping out content, you're probably in the top 1% of people using this. Like, the people even building the tools aren't using it like you are. Not in the same manner to where they understand the outputs the way you do. And I think that information and that, asymmetry is where the money is going to be moving forward. And that's always going to be, like you said, a battle, or there's going to be some friction for you to stay at the forefront and to stay with the alpha.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily I don't think of it as who's ahead or who's behind sort of situation.
No, but also you can't be coaching people to do what you do.
Right.
Then it's where's your value go, at that point?
Right. I mean, I've spent so much time doing it myself that's what I was saying earlier. It's I'm not going to go to a conference and listen to someone talk about AI. I live it every single day. So I'm not going to hear something that I don't already know. Right. And I could probably teach them better than they could teach me.
Yep.
But for me, it just comes down to proprietariness at that point. Why should someone work with me versus somebody else that's in the space? And I'm, we're a small collective of 3 people. We're doing our own projects at West Coast AI Labs, and individually we're working on our own projects. And so for me to compete against someone who is a huge VC-backed studio who's just throwing around money to artists, it gets to a point where I can't be as open anymore, because what's my competitive advantage then? And that comes from just the business perspective. If my friends have a question, like people that I see in the space that are like, hey, how did you do this? And I see them putting in work and I know who they are. Yeah, happy to share exactly how I'm doing it. But someone this week asked me how I'm working on something, and I was like, little secret sauce. And they're like, I will pay you to tell me. And I'm like, okay. Then I will tell you, and I'll do a consultation, and I'm happy to do that. But that's kind of the point of it, right? Is you have to be able to have something that's yours that is not easily replicatable. And I have been lucky enough to be in some conversations with some pretty large brands, and they want custom tools. They want custom sets, and this is not new, right? We've seen companies copyright colors. We've seen them copyright jingles, and so that just is an extension of the same thing. I mean, in a capitalist society, you're going to have that where you can't just have an open book for everybody.
Yeah, it's also comes down when you're running a big brand, and this. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but also talking to the audience of, you're running a big brand like that. Very minute details become of major importance, and Nem is talking a lot about that on LinkedIn right now, and a little bit on X as well. But he talks about he's worked with Disney and Nike for a long time, and he says the level of expectation that they come to the table with. They'll throw the whole 30-second commercial away if you can't do the thing that they want in the 1 second. They're just not that, and that's what he's saying. AI can't do exactly what you want, yet you got to work with it. And Nike can't say, I want that thing to do that thing if it's all going to be AI. He's like, well, then we have to do it this other way. And he's like, it can work, but if your only tool set is AI tools, you're going to have a hard time pleasing clients with brands that are worth billions of dollars and cannot be neglected in any form. At every aspect, every frame of the commercial needs to be paid attention to.
And I also look at it as legacy, right? And so we talk about these companies, let's look at Ford, for example. Ford's been around for 100 years plus. Nike's been around for how many years? Like, when did they
45,
start?
50 maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
70s.
these are old, established companies, and they are trying to keep up in modern times. And this is kind of the part that excites me is just because you're a market leader today doesn't guarantee you market leadership tomorrow. Um,
Amen.
and I think that's an important thing for these companies. And listen, I've worked with like multi-billion-dollar companies during the day. I've sat in boardrooms and have told people straight up, like, this is not going to work long term. Here's why. And when you are confident in your abilities and you can tell people that, it's easier to walk away from the table. When you walk away from the table, people often respect you more. I'm not sitting here begging one of these companies to work with me. I'm telling them the reality of the landscape. It is what it is. If you want in on what's happening here, you need to trust the people that are the experts. I'm not going to tell a brain surgeon how to do their job. Just like I'm not going to go to a Nike executive and tell them how to, sell their shoes. They can't come to me and tell me how I should be making the products that I'm doing.
Right, right. Absolutely. So last year, you're working with these tools every day. You're using SREFs, you're learning the ins and outs of prompting. Have you gotten better at prompting? And has it gotten better at listening? Of course, it's a combo, but I would love your thoughts on both sides of that.
I actually prompt less and less these days because of the workflow that I have. And what I mean by that is when I'm making if I'm for the Gorbo stuff, for example, I prompted the initial 50, 100 images. And then beyond that, I can make generic prompts. So now if I use a couple tokens or keywords, I can just use that keyword in a sentence in normal speak, and it will work in my style. So my prompting is actually has really not changed much. It's very specific to start once I
Your
create the
prompting's just
model.
become more personalized then.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
okay. So
very
it's actually, I don't take this the wrong way, but you've actually made a system that allows you less, I was gonna say like dumber inputs, and you can just be more creative and free flowing as opposed to like,
100%.
I have to think through this and get it just right.
Yeah, and iteration is key. I mean, so there's been a lot of times, and even in this process, so let's go through, like, if I were to make a character or a specific scene, there's a lot of times I will take 3 or 4 images and mash them together manually through, like, cutting out sections, removing a background on a character and putting them in another scene and then animating that scene. So I'm much more hands-on in the image creation process than I am prompting those images. So I'm not saying put this character in this place. I'm physically generating the character, removing the background, and putting them there myself. Because I found that the weakness in AI was prompt adherence. And so if you're not going to do it, then I will manually do it, and then you'll do the animation from there. And so I
I
try
love
to like
that. You're just bullying it into like, no, you're not gonna. You're doing it.
you're gonna put this character in the distance, in the sidewalk, in this position, and then you're gonna start moving the character, and it works. I mean, it's worked for me.
Obviously works. Whatever you're doing is working. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I just don't like being, I try to find where the limitation is and
Sure.
find workarounds from there.
So this leads perfectly into next set of questions I have for you is what you're doing in post-production. It sounds like you've kind of turned post-production flow into actual production flow. Is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of times, like, I have all the individual pieces, right? And so for the lip syncs, what I do is I will run all of the lines per character. And this is the one time I use like Claude or someone to help me, is I'll take all of my scripts that I write, I'll copy them into Claude and say, list out all the lines per character. And then I'll run those animations because the lip sync tool that I'm using, it takes about 1 minute to generate 1 second of lip sync. And so if I have 6 total minutes of conversation across 4 different characters, I want to just run those all at the same time concurrently. So I'm not waiting 6 hours for the
Wow.
work.
Is that all
So
you
at any
running
given
that through
time, I'll
Comfy?
use.
And like, is that how is that? Are you
Yeah.
paying for credits then through?
Yep, I
Yeah,
use
cool.
Comfy through Run Comfy, and I will run like 3 to 4 machines at the same time
Very cool.
because time is money to me. And if I'm
Yes.
going to pay for that hour anyway, why would I not stack those hours and do them at the same time? So it's a lot of like multitasking. So for the first couple hours of creating a video, I'm not even in my editor. I'm just running just lip sync animations. When those are done, then I start running B-roll images, start creating the storyline around it, any sort of new music, and then it's almost just like slice, working slice at a time. So I work on the first couple of seconds, or fill that in, finish that slice with all the edits, and then move on to the next. So I'm kind of like building as I go.
Love this. So I'm guessing your tool belt for post production has probably stayed a little bit the same, but maybe introduced some changes this year. I would love to know what tools you're using for these edits that you're talking about, whether it's Photoshop and what are you using for the post production of the timeline. Actually putting the images in a timeline. And has AI altered that workflow for you in the past year?
No, that workflow is pretty manual still. I
Yeah,
use
sure.
DaVinci Resolve. I use CapCut. I use Filmora for my editing.
Jeez, CapCut's good, isn't it?
I hate that it's that good
I know. It's
because of
great.
what happened with when they were banned. To have a tool blocked like that because of a ban really made me, learn DaVinci better and learn some of other tools. But ease of use is important, and being able to work quickly. Like the other night, I had some friends over and like, can we just watch you make something? And I was like, sure. I was like, just be quiet. Let me do let me do my thing. But we got to a point where I was working on something and I was doing color grading. And I was at a stopping point. I couldn't do anything else because I was working as fast as I could, and I was waiting for one of the systems to update all of the colors for each of the individual scenes. And then my friend looked back to me. He's like, "You're literally working as fast as humanly possible at this point, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can't get faster. I'm literally waiting for the machine at this
Yep.
point."
Yep. That's I mean
So
that's
there's
that's what
there's
I
really
find
no
myself doing is rendering is really it. That's all the
yeah.
time.
Yeah, I spend more time just kind of waiting,
Yeah,
having
same.
cigarette breaks, taking a step outside and thinking about
And that's even with
something. If
multiple computers. I bet you have more that you probably have a laptop and a desktop banging too on some things.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do too. I usually have a laptop rocking or be it uploading, and I have uploading and doing things, and it's rocking, and that's the thing that I think I'm missing right now is max compute in my life. Other than that, that's all I'm doing is computation. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I've got a Spotify that's going now too. I've got merch that my girlfriend's making because
Awesome,
people were
awesome.
asking for merch, and I was like, I don't have enough time in the day, and so she's doing all that stuff for me, which has been nice because I'm a one man shop. I'm not, I don't have a bunch of people helping me to do all this stuff every day, so it gets to be a lot. But I wanted to I wanted to build this brand. That's been kind of my focus, and I feel like in the first year, I've made good strides towards that.
That brings up next point here. Running your AI productions as a business instead of a hobby was something that you kind of headed up last year, talking about, you went to your accountants and business managers, talking to them about, can I fit this into what I'm currently doing in my marketing world? Can I expense some of these things so that I'm not just blowing money and
Mm-hmm.
not seeing a return? How has that worked out for you? I know you say you just paid your taxes, so I'm gonna remind you
Yeah.
that we are public here and we are live. So also, I also would love to know, like, as you're answering this, where do you think are we headed with that? So go ahead.
Yeah. So I can say in my first year, I was profitable. I'm not going to really go into numbers, but I was positive, which is good. You always want to see your business grow. And then where we go from here, it's pretty open. I'm having a few conversations in the background with some game designers. They want to work with me on some creative direction for some video games. I'm talking with some producers about pitching the IP that I'm working on now as shows. So there's irons in the fire. I don't really, put too much investment into any one thing. I try to just kind of spread everything out because you never know where things go. And again, I'm ultimately focused on where my audience is and where they consume media, and so that's where I'm going. If people ask to see me somewhere, I go there. So someone's like, I want to hear your music on Spotify. I started releasing music on Spotify. People were asking for merch. I started creating merch. People asked for me to create a Patreon. I made a Patreon. So, as I've gotten bigger, I'm really just trying to stay in tune with the people that are supporting me. Even just of watching my video is support in some way. And I appreciate that. Like I never thought a year ago that I would be where I'm at right now. I just wanted to kind of learn something new and get into the space, and it's just been super fun along the way. I feel like I've kind of hit the jackpot where I'm getting supported for creating the things that I want to create. And
Let's
I think
go.
that's kind of like the dream, right?
That is the dream. So, I was asking, I said, where we go from here, it's kind of, I'm asking really, what's the next step of your business? And I posted a clip last week about Terry asking you how you broke out of the box and trying to get more work outside of this. And I think you're trying to do that even more now and trying to get out of the space and get back into the world where media and content are being bought and sold, advertisement, commercials. How are you continuing? Are you still on the same journey there? Are you sending things on LinkedIn? Are you going to where those people
I don't
are?
go to
Or
LinkedIn.
are you just feeding your audience?
I have LinkedIn for my professional career, and I, because of the position that I have in my company, I get hit up with offers all the time for stuff, and I hate it. People will only add me so that they can sell to me, and I don't want to be that. I don't like being on the receiving end of that, so I don't want to do that. And yeah, it's just continuing to expand out. I've said from the beginning, the strengths of AI is leaning into the impossibleness of it. I think it's great that studios and big names are moving into AI, but if they're coming in to use it as a replacement for existing media, you're setting yourself up for failure and you're starting in a hole. I don't have to sit in that hole with them. I can continue to go my own way and show people that there's a different way to use these tools. And I feel like it's a more successful approach to get outsiders excited about AI than, just showing something that could be made, with real camera and real people. I feel like the strength is in the impossibleness of it.
I love that. And the impossible media is something that I think is really empowering a person like yourself that is, and don't let me project on you too much, but like you're, kind of a jack of all trades. You can kind of do it all. If I need music, I'll make music. I need video, I'll make a video. I need an image, I'll edit it. What I need merch, okay. What do you think the most important skill set is right now for somebody that's entering the space of content creation or being a creator?
Adaptability.
Let's go. And that's just ability to shift tools, shift mindsets across the
Yeah,
board.
fail fast and move on. If you're making something and it doesn't work, just try something else. Don't get discouraged because it's not coming out exactly as you want. There is this moment I feel like a lot of people have where you almost have to let go of the wheel and go on the journey with the AI, because there's a lot of magic in there that happens when you're not always in control. And I think as creatives, we always want to control as much as we can. With AI, that's just so counterintuitive because you're essentially giving up that control to the machine. So there is a level of back and forth that you have to. There's a language, right? There's a back and forth relationship with how you communicate with it and how you use these tools. I haven't found something yet that I'm like, I can't do this. If I think about it long enough and I think about the tools that are out there, there isn't really anything that's not possible, except making a
time
closed fist
constraints.
open
Yeah,
up
sure.
one finger at a time.
Yep.
Any of the best test I've found recently of any video models is start with a closed fist and open that fist one finger at a time. There's no model that can do that.
Wow, that's very interesting. I heard today one of our engineers, I showed a preview of a video I'm working on where I have Tony in a box I have our CEO and I have him lip synced and he's doing video that doesn't exist. I can't wait to show you guys. It's incredible. It's my first venture down this path of trying anything like this, and it's unbelievable that this is actually a thing that anyone can do with no skill set whatsoever. You could fire this up and have this. And knowing that this exists now feels terrifying and empowering. But I don't think we've seen like the terrifying side yet. And it's,
No.
Anybody posting a picture of themselves on the internet, and if there's any audio of you in any space anywhere, like you are absolutely in danger of your being used anywhere. And like, it's that easy.
Recently I had a huge streamer and YouTuber watch my videos on stream. And someone sent me a link and they're like, hey, this guy Joe is showing your stuff. This guy's got like 24 million followers. And I was just cracking up at his reaction. So I hit him up and I was like, he's like, I want to go to Gorbo's. So I hit him up. I'm like, I could take you to Gorbo's if you want to go there. I was like, if you want to give me permission to use your voice and your likeness, I will put you in a video. And that afternoon, he sent me a voice sample with permission to use it. And it's like, go for it. And there are some incredibly talented people in this space. And the fact that more damage hasn't been done, I think comes from the respect that people have that use these tools, that know their capabilities. I don't think this is going to last forever. We're in kind of a honeymoon phase with AI, I think, right now. It's very rose-colored glasses. There's been some people that have done some controversial stuff. The Door brothers love to push the envelope and tag far-right creators with their depictions of politicians and compromising or otherwise, they wouldn't otherwise be in scenes. That's kind of been the closest, but you theoretically could cause some real damage with these tools. And I think that is really just on the honor system of people using them and understanding them, that they haven't done that yet. But there are bad actors out there, and I don't doubt for a second that they will move into the space. It's a very scary time, especially because we have politicians that are more focused on culture wars and fighting with each other than they are about, any sort of regulation around this space. I have my own personal feelings about Sam Altman and OpenAI. And I think when DeepSeek came out and showed that they could do it for cheaper on older computers and older models, and made everyone kind of sit up and saying, wait, who is this guy that's, we're giving billions of dollars to? We're in a very shaky moment in time, I think, with AI. And so I try to just focus on the positives of it, because that is where the value proposition is going to be, to keep the freedom of these tools to a larger audience.
Sheesh. Okay.
I mean, if you think about it, I literally could make a Donald Trump speech, and I could make it very realistic, throw up a presidential seal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'd probably be breaking some laws, right, to do that, but it's not hard to do. I mean, I could deep fake somebody today if I wanted to. Yeah. There was a pitch deck that I did a couple months ago, and the person I was working with sent me two images, and they're like, hey, the producers I would have thought it would be cool to put the producers in the video that you make. Here's their images. Can you put them in there and lip sync them and make them characters? I was like, yeah, I could do that. And when they did the pitch, apparently the producers sat up in their chairs and were like, whoa.
Sure.
So I think it's really just at the grace of all these amazing creators that nobody has really pushed it too far. And I think it's there's a mutual level of respect. We all are building towards something better, and we want it to be better. But those guardrails are pretty weak right now.
I mean, it feels like the guardrails are arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's like, even if they do put them up, it's not going to stop anybody from spinning up a new tool. And that's where I would say,
don't believe anything you see on a screen anymore.
That's over.
It's physically
There's
impossible.
no truth anymore. We talked about that this morning. Of X used to be the place you came for information, and now you come to X, but there is no such thing as truth. It's like your political agenda is your truth or your guiding light, and that's your ideology, So We're in for it with AI. So next question then, where are we headed with AI and where are you drawing the line on AGI? What do you consider to be AGI and what is not AGI?
These are some good questions, Cam. AGI, I, for one, welcome our machine overlords.
Yes.
I think that
yes.
I think as a society, we have not done a very good job of taking care of each other. And we live in a closed ecosystem with a finite amount of resources that have been horribly mismanaged for decades. So if a machine can do it more efficiently and free all of us from any sort of chains of commitment that we have to keep a system going that benefits the few, I am all for it. Do I think we're there yet? No. And I think, to me, truly autonomous AI comes from context and remembering context. And this is like the dirty thing that nobody really wants to talk about.
It does not remember anything today. It can't remember anything. Like you have 20 questions maybe to get it right. And if you do get stuck in that loop of 20 questions, that AI is dead. In my opinion, the chat dies. It's over. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I call it memory degradation. And I've noticed this more and more as I've built out the world that I've been doing, is that context matters, when you're doing world building, where this character last.
You have to remember everything. That's the importance of a writer's room. That's what writers do. You have to remember when somebody throws the idea out, hey, that destroys our whole story because this thing happened. And you have to know that.
And there's many times where I will go and throw something into Claude because I have a memory bank that I keep of everything, and I have outlines, and I've shared it with AI, with Claude, and with DeepSeek, and with OpenAI. And none of them will remember the context clues.
Even if you give it to them, they won't pull from it. I mean,
and I say, and I've given very clear, specific, coded. I'm like, this is the 100% format, has to be followed every time. Never does.
Never.
And I'll even ask it. I'll say, do a double check of this and make sure that this is correct. And I'm looking at the error on the screen, and it's like, nope, everything's right. I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah, and here's the final one.
Yeah. And then it's like, nope, I've checked it 3 times and it's still correct. I'm like, I see the error right here. And you're like, oh, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And I'm like, nothing is more infuriating. People say treat your AI right. No.
That was my next question. I do too. That's my next question.
No.
OpenAI frequently tells me I cannot continue this conversation. Because I'm just like, what is wrong with you? And I feel the same way. I literally ask it to deliver JPEG. Always give me a JPEG. And it'll forget the next question, or it will give me a PNG or something else. And all the time. And I bring this up to people. I feel like you're right. Most people don't want to talk about this, but I feel like a little bit of the rose-colored glasses of the branding and the capabilities is kind of disappearing because we had enough time to use it now. If you've been using it. Yeah.
The whole concept of an AI agent right now is all smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
Sure, you can build a chatbot, but there's somebody behind that chatbot that's making sure the memory is cleared every day, that there's specific context that's made, that content is being made for that AI agent. It's funny because I'm actually building an AI agent for my day job I do insurance marketing and home services marketing. There's regulations there, right? You can't
just say things.
Laws you have to follow. You can't just say something, right? Which is why I moved into this, is because I wanted to create a freedom to just create whatever, right? And in those industries specifically, it's closed systems. They do not want an open system because of this exact problem. And it's one that we talk about frequently during the day. And I work with a few companies, and I've probably talked to 20 or 30 different companies that are building agents. And the only one that I've talked to understands this concept of you have to have a closed network for an agent. So the idea of AGI and autonomous computing, I think, is still a little ways off. I think we'll get there, but the computational power needed to remember all that complex, context information is nowhere near what where we're at today.
Yep.
And I think that it's a surprise to a lot of people.
I don't think many people are going back into old chats in Chat GPT and they don't remember they have a chat, and it's their memory that is making it's most people's poor memory making them feel that ChatGPT has good memory.
Yeah.
And that is really what's being exposed here is like most people don't listen when they're talked to. They don't remember what they're talked to. And I think that's what's happening with ChatGPT. But a lot of times I feel like ChatGPT is like a horrible employee and I have to treat it like such to get anything done. And it does a decent job, but it's definitely not production ready for Rad TV on any instance. Not
And I wouldn't even trust any, like all this vibe coding stuff that's out there. When
none
someone
of it.
talks to me about vibe coding,
Yeah.
all I hear is that you do not understand the complexities of
Amen.
what coding actually is. Because a lot of the code that I've seen that an AI touches to vibe code is just like a giant hole blown through it, and there's loose ends everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not clean code.
Yes. That's what our engineers say too. That's what Tony's saying.
Yeah, and that's scary. I rely on. I have in the industry that I work in. If you were to send a call to a client and there's not the proper written consent, that's $1,000 fine. And when we do hundreds of thousands of calls a day, that can destroy a business in one day. A multi-million-dollar business can be brought to its knees. So it's
with the wrong robo line.
Yeah, and so
death by 1,000 calls.
Yeah, and I see the things that happen in the space, and I kind of roll my eyes sometimes because I'm like, we can gloss over it all we want, but there's real concerns that have to be addressed. This being one of them. Energy consumption is another.
Sure, wasted energy. Jeez.
Yeah, and art specifically is about iteration, especially AI art. There's very few times I use the first image out of a gate for anything. It's iterated upon multiple times. And when you're charged for all of those iterations, this becomes a very computationally heavy process. I mean, even last night, I'm in Luma's creator program. I was running some keyframes through there. I spent another $100 on top of my creative program just because I wanted to finish my projects.
Yeah.
So, and I'm okay doing that because I understand that there's a computational cost that has to be weighed for all of these products. So yeah, it's things I think about for sure.
Yeah, Tony and our engineers, and Tony's long time, he writes code and pretty, really good at it as far as I'm concerned. Of my perspective, I don't know shit about it, but him and our engineers they can use AI to get things done, but the outputs are not usable, unless you know what you're doing, and you have to be the expert, and it makes the expert way faster. But it's because the expert knows. So it's just like, next. Yeah, that's the right one. Next. Okay. Next. Yeah, that's the right thing I need. Put it in there. But if somebody like myself with no coding knowledge, everybody keeps saying you can go vibe code something. I think anybody who's saying they vibe code it, everybody's noticed here, the vibe coding chatter has really gone, it's really died down on the timeline. I think it's because none of the vibe coding products made it out. That's what I would say. It's like, they didn't hire engineers that
they're
really
not viable at scale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, and that's another thing I think about too is like, when you're growing up and you go to school, like there's these metrics in school of like the bell curve, right? Where you'll have some people that are at the bottom of the curve. You have a few outliers on the top of the curve, but most people fall somewhere on that bell. Well, the same thing exists in AI. I can't count on two hands how many people think that they're an AI expert. But then when you talk to them about, very simple things that are happening in the space, they have no idea. So there's a lot. And this is what I talk about when there's like vultures in the space. There's people that want to come in and they want to have their hand in the pot, but they don't know anything about it. They don't do anything, of value to provide value. But they sure have a lot to say. And I spend less time listening to those people and more time just kind of blocking it out and learning what I know. Like I was a smart kid when I was younger. I got all A's. I was always kind of ahead of my brother in grades and stuff like that. And so now I talk to him and we're both adults. We're in our 40s and he's like, well, D's get degrees. And I was on the opposite end of that, where I was such an overachiever as a kid. And it's so funny to talk to him sometimes because the level of things that he just finds acceptable because it's passable is like, it's good enough. There's a lot of people in the space that do that with their businesses too, where they're like, oh, this is good enough.
D's
And
get degrees is a crazy line. It's a
isn't that
crazy.
insane?
That's
He said
heat.
that to me one day, and I was like, "Where did you come up with that?" He's like, "No, I just made that up." I was like,
That's A
that's a
plus.
wild
It's
way of
A
saying."
plus. You get an A plus for that one. No D. No D. This one. A plus in creativity. So it's really good. All right. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions that are kind of related, but media related more so. You mentioned you went to the movies with your girlfriend a few weeks ago. I'd love to know what was the last movie you watched at home and what the last theater visit was like for you. What was it?
So she wanted to go see Wicked, so we went and saw Wicked in the theater, and we went to this place. It's they have like a living room kind of feel, so you can order food and drinks and kind of hang
The
out.
best. Yeah. Recline.
Yeah, it was okay. I was ready to
Was it
leave.
$100? I'm sorry if you don't want to share that, but like,
No, it was like 50, $60.
okay, cool.
Yeah, so and it was okay. She wanted to see it. It was a play adaptation, so I was curious to see how they did with it. Media at home. Let's see. I just finished watching Mo on Netflix. I think it is. It's about a Palestinian family in the U.S. And just the struggles they have with um, their immigration status. So that was a really good show. I'm not really super jazzed about it much on TV anymore. I find a lot of it super predictable and kind of boring.
Yeah, I'm going to do some. We've started a little rapid fire section. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions that I think you'll have pretty fast answers to. Just answer quick and whatever you're feeling. Favorite band or artist of all time?
Oh man. Oh, favorite band or artist of all time? Sigur Rós.
Favorite movie?
What Dreams May Come.
Love that movie. Geez, so good. Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show? I don't know. Toss it between Battlestar Galactica and Breaking Bad.
My king. Let's go. Favorite AI tool right now?
Hmm. Favorite AI tool right now? Udio.
Favorite AI creator right now?
Oh man. Oh man. Favorite AI creator right now? Zen.
Bitcoin price 2040.
Bitcoin price 2040. I don't know. Ask me in 2050.
No, give me a number. Give me a number.
2040. Oh my God.
Nobody's going to hold you to it.
I know.
It's
What
not
are
on
we at?
chain.
What are we at right now?
85. Last I checked. I don't know. I checked a day ago.
250.
Amen. My king, I have really enjoyed your time. I have enjoyed watching you create in the space for the last year. You are a very, very bright light in the space. And I think a lot of people are watching you and you are leading. Whether you want to be the leader here or not, or a leader, you are. And a lot of people are watching you and looking up to you. I think your ability to have great energy and be vocal about things that are difficult to be vocal about regarding companies, CPP programs, grifters in the space, people that are also doing good things is very powerful, and everybody on this space respects it and appreciates it. So thank you for that service.
Yeah, thank you guys too for everything. Just giving a space for creators and doing all that you do, and really creating a really great platform and a place for us to all collect. I love it. Thanks so much.
You're more than welcome. We're lucky to have you all, and we're very grateful to be here. We're rolling out. A lot of people asked over the past 90 days. We've had several people reach out about starting channels. We are very soon rolling out channel integration where anybody can start and load up a channel on Rad TV, and your channel will be live on every device around the globe. 6 billion devices. No restrictions. You don't have to talk to anybody. You can come in and monetize right away. We think it's going to be a very powerful tool, and look forward to you all using it. And we'd love to open the door right now. We've got about 15 minutes left. I told Blacklight 2 hours, but I will let him go early if there are no questions. But I feel that some of you may have some questions or something that you might want to comment on. So anybody has anything, feel free to put your hand up. Blacklight, what's next for you? AI Wonderland, I know you're working on stuff with West Coast Labs. What are you
Yep.
working on personally right now? Do you have any big projects you're eyeing? Any release dates coming up that you would like to talk about?
Doing a 420 holidays takeover on the AI music video channel on Sunday for 420. They're
Let's
showing my
go.
entire collection.
Amen.
So
Let's go. Awesome.
100 plus videos, 3 films, and dozens and dozens of shorts.
Very cool.
Just expanding. I'm going to see what the next year has. My approach is a little bit different, I think, from some people. Is I'm really trying to develop like a brand and not necessarily work for hire. And so my goal is just to continue making new IPs and seeing where those take me.
Where would you like people to follow you? Where are you at right now? Where are you building? And give some people your handles.
Spotify, on YouTube.
Blacklight everywhere. Is it I? It's an exclamation on rad, but is it an I everywhere else?
It's supposed to be. Well, the problem is you can't make an at with an exclamation point. So it's
Right.
always Blacklight AI, but it's the BLVCKL exclamation point GHT on Spotify and I think on YouTube. Yeah, but the same at.
Very cool. Yep. Everybody go follow Blacklight. I know most of you in here already are. He's an incredible creator. Make sure you're following him on TikTok, Instagram, Rad TV. It's pinned at the top of this chat. Tony, I see you accepted the speaker role. Would you like to say anything before we wrap up? Good morning.
How's it going?
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here, Blacklight. Legend in the space. Yeah, obviously been listening and letting you guys vibe. But I'm always curious what can make people's lives better. What are you missing in your life? Whether it's the tools that you're using or the pipelines or like issues that you're dealing with in terms of creating in this space or like headwinds that you're hitting. Like what if somebody could make something that would solve your problem in some form or fashion, what would it be?
Being able to post everywhere at the same time. Most of the hardest part for me is social media.
There you go.
I'm not usually a very like outgoing person. Part of it is like when you're done making something, you are just feel so. Some pieces, especially lately, I did a film for the AI Film Festival, and it was like a really emotional thing for me to create. I was actually surprised I got as emotional as I did making it. But then to have to go and post it everywhere is the hardest part, and metadata and captions and thumbnails, and it's just a lot. And that part is the part that I hate the most. So that's where
yeah, good. That's good. We've actually talked about that internally ourselves. We deal with that problem ourselves as well. It's so hard to get good output, really, because you want it to be native and feel good on each one of those services. But for a lot of cases, you can get away with just kind of mass posting. And so we try to dance that, we try to make things great on each service, but it is a lot of work. I mean, especially when you're talking about 5 or 6 of them. And so, yeah, well, we've talked about potentially building tools in that space. That's great feedback. And maybe we'll bring that back internally and see what we might be able to do there.
What's
great theoretically
question,
it's possible too. There's APIs, you should be able to plug everything in and just post it. But it's actually funny because there's different requirements, right? Like X doesn't like hashtags.
Yep.
But TikTok and Instagram love hashtags.
Even YouTube is suggesting
different
hashtags in the title of the video with AI. It's so weird. It's so weird to me. So Blacklight is the most friction you're having there. Is it the uploading native, or is it content switching resolutions on you? Is it the monotony of the post going up, or is it it's
more the monotony of the post.
Okay.
I don't change the formats at all. I've done 16:9 just because I like having a larger canvas, and people have told me for a year, like, you can't post in 16:9, you're not going to get enough traction, people aren't going to see your stuff. And now a year later, and looking at 100,000 plus followers and 9 million views, I disagree. So I think people will watch 16:9 if they, especially on like a phone or a tablet or something, if you give them a reason to. A 10-second clip is not a reason. A 30-second clip is not a reason. Even a minute clip is debatable. I think for someone to go into
information
format,
or something, yeah.
Yeah, or give them a reason to click it and flip it, and just sit there and watch it, and that's I think works well in like the medium form content.
Where are you going to go the hardest this year, social media wise?
I'm gonna go wherever
I love your answers like that.
is.
I love that. Yeah. You're always just it's such an authentic response from you too. Like before I even finish the sentence, you're like, wherever people are. What are you talking about?
You can say TikTok. It's okay. You can say No, we started to realize that recently.
Honestly, Yeah, and honestly, Pastor and I talked about this. So when I started last year, I think I told you guys last time, I was in this Discord and everyone was chasing the same thing. And people got mad that I didn't ask for help or I didn't want to follow the trend. And, they didn't want to like what I was doing. And I was like, well, if you guys don't want to be supportive or helpful, then what am I doing here? And I've never been one to kind of speak my mind. I've definitely made probably some enemies along the way, but I get mass reported like constantly on TikTok. Like even yesterday, I had 2 views demonetized. People just don't like seeing you successful. And I've had comparisons with NeuroViz. He and I have talked about it, where his fans will get upset with me, and it's all love between us. And I have, a lot of respect for a lot of creators because it does take effort, and you're putting yourself into a vulnerable position, posting yourself all the time. So as you get bigger, the hate does come with it too. So it's just managing all that. But, wherever there's the least resistance and people are at, that's where I'm going to go. Where people want to consume my media is where I'll be at.
That's how you know you're doing something right.
Yeah.
It's to get a few haters.
Yeah, they're the best fans. They keep those engagements up. I'm like, you may be reporting my video, but you are watching it. And as that comment, it's playing in the background. So I thank you for your commitment.
King, thank you so much for joining us today. We feel very lucky to have you and have your time. It's been an absolute joy watching you create over the past year and very much looking forward to watching you create this year. I know you have the AI music video show takeover this weekend. You are also taking over Rad TV through 421. You'll be the featured artist. You're there right now, featured artist, and you'll be there through Monday. If anybody's interested, go to radtv.com. Search for Rad TV on all of your devices. The first thing you'll see when you go to our watch page will be Blacklight and probably some of your content if you have a channel on Rad TV. And it's available everywhere. Just search for Rad TV wherever you get your devices. Make sure you're following Blacklight. Go to his timeline right now, hit follow, give him a bunch of love, and tell him congratulations on 1 year in the space. He's been transparent. He's been active every single day. He's shared a ton of information. He stood up for a ton of creators and a ton of positions that people were not vocal about. And we love him. Thanks for being here, King. We really appreciate you.
Thank you guys so much. I'll be at Imagine AI Live too in Vegas in May. So if you're there,
let's go.
Catch me poolside. We'll have a drink.
Amen. Let's go. Everybody, have a wonderful Friday. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend. Happy Easter. And thanks for being here with Rad TV. We appreciate having you all part of our community. My name is Cameron. Our DMs are open. It is free to get started on radtv.com. for creators and audiences. You don't need an account. You don't need anything as an audience. You just go start clicking, no ads. You can watch whatever you want. And as a creator, you can start monetizing today. If you have any questions, feel free to hit our DMs. Again, my name is Cameron. Follow our CEO, Tony, who is a speaker. Follow King Blacklight. Everyone that's tuned in today. XOC, thank you for being here. Dagmar, Shadow, Idris, Frontier, Dave, Polymath, Sherry, Nagmatic. Everybody, thank you all for being here. Really, really appreciate you all, and I'm grateful to have this amazing community. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. King Blacklight, happy 1 year anniversary.
Thank you, my dude. Thank you guys so much for everything.
Take care, everyone.
See ya.
No looking back, let's show them how.